Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. In this video, I'm going to briefly talk about the bank capital reform that a lot of people are talking about within the banking industry, but is not being discussed a lot out there on the mainstream media. Now, this bank capital reform is to try and bring more capital to the banks to mitigate risk. I think that's probably the easiest way to understand it. And they want to change the regulations in which that these banks have to operate. Now, there is a speech given by Michelle Bowman on January 17th, 2024, that says the path forward for bank capital reform. So in this speech, she discusses pretty much everything that needs to be understood about this bank capital reform. And I figured that we should probably break this stuff down, and I'm going to read a little bit from this speech so you can kind of get an understanding of what it is that's being discussed within this particular topic. Now, it says this: more is better. This axiom often holds true in many respects, but experience also teaches us that there are limits. Today, I am happy to join you here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to talk about proposed changes to bank capital rules in the United States and to probe the limits of this notion that more is better when regulators seek to apply it to bank capital requirements. In July of 2023, the federal banking agencies proposed changes to implement the Basel III endgame capital reforms. The published capital rulemaker proposal incorporated an expansive scope and a notable shift in the approach by pushing down on new Basel capital requirements to all banks with over $100 billion in assets, regardless of their international activities. The proposal would substantially increase regulatory capital buffer and a minimum capital requirements for the covered firms. The comment period closed yesterday, January 16th. We've seen a robust response from commenters, with a large number of commenters submitted during the latter part of the comment period. As a policymaker, I am pleased to see the careful attention stakeholders have paid to this proposal and the thoughtful feedback that has been provided during the comments period. Public input should help to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the proposal. From my perspective, given the significant response from a number of industries and perspectives, as a bank regulatory policymaker, the agencies are obligated to think carefully about the best path forward for this proposal. This should include making substantive changes to address known deficiencies within the proposal and given the public an opportunity to comment of any reformulated proposal to ensure the best possible outcome for the Basel capital reforms. The path should ensure that sufficient consideration is given to a wide-reaching consequences of capital reform to the U.S. banking industry, the U.S. economy, and importantly, U.S. businesses. We should consider trade-offs in addressing scope, calibration, and tailoring, and we should appropriately adjust the excessive calibrations and eliminate regulatory overreach in proposed rules. Today, I'd like to briefly discuss what I see as the consequences of miscalibration of capital reforms and testing the more is better principle through a discussion of the impacts of finalizing the proposed capital reforms without significant revisions. I will then outline ideas for a path forward and highlight what I see as the two most pressing problems in this proposal. Issues that we must address before finalizing these and other pending rules. And finally, at the risk of lulling those to sleep who do not eat, drink, and breathe bank capital rules 24/7, I will identify a few important technical issues for resolution because they lead into two overreaching problems that I have referenced a moment ago. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. For those of you who want to know more about what's in this speech, join the channel. We are going to discuss this in a live stream, most likely on Thursday evening. Now, I will leave a link down in the description to that live stream. We will discuss everything that's within the speech. We will read it word for word, and we will break down everything that is within it so that we can understand and internalize what it is that's being discussed when it comes to this bank capital reform. It is a very big deal that is beginning to take place within the banking system being discussed, and not a lot of people out there are quite aware of what it is that is happening. So again, we are going to break down this speech, and we are going to identify those two problems that Michelle Bowman is referring to, and we are going to discuss them in a way that not only is the average person going to be able to understand it, but that you're going to be able to internalize it and understand what is taking place within the economy, within the discussions of the news articles that you read, within the comments that are coming from the news that you see out there. You're going to have an already understanding, belief, and knowing what it is that is out there before those opinions start corrupting all your minds and, trying to, guide your understandings of what it is that's going out there. Because you have to understand, if anything is being discussed on the mainstream media, it is propaganda. They do not put anything out there that they don't want you to know about. Right? So there's no magic understanding that is going to come from the news, but there might be one coming from this speech. I will leave a link to this speech down in the discussion. Or down in the description of this video, and you can come join the discussion in the live stream that will most likely be happening on Thursday evening. Again, the live stream value is more than you could possibly imagine when you think about some of the discussions that have been taking place within these live streams. I have a group of people who are very serious about this topic. We do the research, we have the discussion, I have so many people who are in the comments section that are incredibly intelligent. They are, able to be asked questions of. It is a community of like-minded people who are growing, and we are just definitely got our fingers on the pulse in a way that nobody else really has. I mean, this is quite unique to this channel, that we discuss some of the things like average inflation rate before anybody even knows what average inflation rate is. Right? Most of us have already internalized the idea of what credible threats are, so when we see the Federal Reserve coming out with some statements, we know that it's out there to try and get the markets to behave in a way that normally they wouldn't do. Right? This is stuff that we discuss on this channel on a regular basis, and I'm pulling it from the Fed themselves. I'm not just making stuff up and finding it, something entertaining to talk about. This stuff isn't entertaining. This is work, right? And understanding it is hard. And understanding it to the best that you can possibly understand it is going to be the way that you can position yourself so that you can have the best outcome for you and your family. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.